I'm Megan.
I'm CJ.
And I'm Erica.
And this is the Her Podcast. Today, we are so excited to welcome our good friend and fellow small business owner, Cole Thorpe, to the podcast. Cole is the owner and founder of Prairie Proud, an apparel brand founded on Cole's passion and pride of his small town Prairie roots. Prairie Proud provides current and former Prairie residents the opportunity to wear their pride while investing back into the prairies through charity contributions. Since its launch in 2014, they have contributed over $77,000 to organizations throughout the prairies. Not only is he a strong supporter of his community and fellow small businesses, he is truly one of the nicest guys we know. We have a ton of questions for Cole, so let's get into it.
Talk about first?
What's that?
Your mustache.
Your mustache.
Okay, we can do that. And I'll give you the honest answer.
You can see that. The honest
you can
answer.
see that beast coming down the street.
Well, so that's, I guess, a good thing.
It is.
My brother is jealous of it right off the bat.
Well, that's winning right
mustache.
there.
So he can't really grow, well, he can grow like patchy. It's just not very good. And so my father has had facial hair as long as I have known him. And when I told him I was going to do this, he is probably more excited than when I hit my first home run, to be honest with you.
Wow.
Your dad?
My dad is very excited about the facial hair on my face right now.
hilarious.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, it's not only for potentially for Movember and supporting of men's health initiatives, but also as if you've been following us on social media, we've started to dive into short form video content, and we may be utilizing the mustache for a couple different characters. So
I walked in the other day, and I think I walked in, and you looked at me, and the first thing I did was I was like, I think it looks great.
I know.
Yeah, I think you should. I think I'd like to see the full. Like, does your dad have a full?
So I was mentioning to Megan on the way in here, my dad started out with a mustache, then it got to a goatee, and now it's been a full beard for about 20 years.
I want to see the full beard.
Now everybody like that I knew me growing up as well that I've seen is like, you look like your dad. And obviously, I guess that's a compliment. But yeah, it's interesting just in terms of your reaction, and other people like that have had. Yeah, it's just you never had a mustache before, or at least, let it grow for a month's time and see what it actually does as an adult. Obviously, as a teenager, you're developing, I guess, right?
So it's a little patchy at first.
Yes.
A little patchy.
I feel like we're seeing a resurgence of the mustache on grown men.
I told Nick, because he only started growing facial hair because he actually broke his neck. And so he had to wear a neck brace. Yeah, he broke his neck. So he had to wear a neck brace. And then the one day we were FaceTime, he took off the neck brace. And I was like, oh, I like your facial hair. Done deal. Now he has it.
Yeah.
But I've told him, I'm like, you should just have a mustache. And he's like, excuse me. I'm like, I think it'd be nice. I'm like, I'm kind of like,
Well, it's like when we were talking about Yellowstone the other day, you were like, I'm into Kevin Costner now. Instead of
Kevin Costner.
No, the older, the dad
which
instead
like
of the son.
the facial hair and the,
Sorry, Cole.
Hey, I'm a big fan of Yellowstone. It's a good show.
It is.
Yes.
It's good. It's a little intense.
It's a little
I feel like
unrealistic at times, but it's a TV show.
But I straight up, I'm like, it's probably like that down there. Like, it's just a Wild West down there.
Montana's
Seriously.
amazing.
Yeah, well, you've actually been to Montana.
Yeah, I would move there. I would. Anywhere in the U.S. I don't really necessarily want to be, but if I was to choose somewhere, it would be Montana.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like it's Alberta, but like Montana.
So you talked about your dad and your family, which is in a small town.
Yes. So I'm born and raised in a town called Spy Hill, Saskatchewan. So it is on a good day about 150 people.
That is wild.
What? I
yeah.
thought you were in...
So, okay, this is a whole debate, obviously, I guess.
Okay.
So I started school in Spy Hill. So Spy Hill School closed in 2000.
Okay.
And so then from 2000 on, finishing my elementary and then high school was in the neighboring town of Langenburg. So Langenburg is about 1,200 people, and it's about 20 minutes north of Spy Hill. So our farm, where I grew up, is about 10 minutes northeast of Spy Hill. So we're somewhat in between the two towns, but we are closer to Spy Hill, and hence where technically that's where I really, I guess, associate with. But I did graduate high school in Langenburg, both very small communities in the southeastern part of the province.
Because, like, as soon as you said Spy Hill, I was like, you've been lying to me. Because I'm all about those laugh and linger days of Langenburg, okay?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So there is an annual event in Langenburg that we did attend.
What is that?
The first time go ahead. You tell us what it is first of all.
Yeah, so every like most small towns, there's some type of homecoming event, and so in Langenburg, they've now been doing this. I believe it's got to be close to 50 or 60 years, and they call it Laugh and Linger Days. So keep in mind, Langenburg is a very largely German population.
Cool.
And so there's some different activities that are done. Although this is, I don't know why they call it, is a thing called Belgian bowling, if you've ever heard of it before. And so this is an annual event. Actually, a few years ago, Langenburg set the world record for amount of people playing Belgian bowling in one time. So yeah, I think that was 2016.
I love this.
And so we
Go
actually
small towns.
popped up at that event, and obviously the local community where you grew up is tremendously supportive and really appreciative of that. And it's always, again, Saskatoon has become home, but Langenburg and Spy Hill area will always be where I grew up and hold a special place in my heart.
How did growing up in a small town impact you? Like, did you enjoy growing up in a small town? Did you want to leave as soon as you could? What was that like for you?
It's a great question. So I think looking back, in some ways, I feel like my parents maybe sheltered me a little bit. And then that's just growing up in a small community. You don't realize the big world that is out there, the large city. Now, don't get me wrong. My parents sacrificed a lot for my brother and I to play competitive sports. We would travel all over the province, all over the prairies to play different sports growing up. And so that was like kind of a snapshot in like, oh, there is a world outside of my small community. But I think for anybody who's grown up in a small community, they can appreciate that you kind of you're not stuck if you don't leave, but there is like your family, your friends are all in a small area.
You're like in a bubble.
Yes, I think that's a great analogy of it is a bubble. And the fact that until you kind of branch your wings and step out of that bubble, you don't really realize, oh, wow, there's a large world out there. So I remember when I first came to university and I started at the U of S. And keep in mind, my first class was 350 people.
Oh, yeah.
So larger than my town that I grew up in.
Yeah.
And so that was a large, intimidating factor that I had to, probably for close to a year, had to get over. It was a fear. It was a concern. I don't love crowds in general.
Yeah.
And so the fact that I had to go to a campus with 20,000 people and attend with a bunch of strangers, it was certainly intimidating. And that just comes down to, I think, potentially people, like I graduated with like 15 people. So it's just a different atmosphere. And luckily, like I had my brother who was also in university at the time here at the U of S. So he was kind of my shoulder to lean on and kind of my guiding light, if you will.
Yeah, that's so nice.
Yeah. So, that without that, though, I think it certainly would have been really hard in that transition because I think you're so locked into your small community, your family and friends that you have. And so even just, meeting new people was, quite different for me when I first came to Saskatoon. Obviously, I've got over that fear now, but it's certainly, I think other people potentially from small towns could relate to that.
I'm curious on what your class was with 350 people. And when did you start going to university?
I'm guessing it was an arts and science class.
I think it's bio.
It was a math class. So, so yeah, the first class, there's 350 students. I think there's even a couple sections of it.
I have a question. Sorry about this first class. In 350 big room, where did you sit? Did you sit at the front or did you sit at the back?
Definitely was leaning towards the back.
Okay.
My nerves and my, it was just intimidating in general.
Yeah.
And again, like, I thought a pretty decent math student in high school. I felt fairly confident going in, but that confidence was kind of shattered. And so that for me was just a really like an eye-opening experience with, some classes are, 50 students in some of your electives, but those like core classes that everybody has to take. And it was in the arts and science building, Arts 114 or whatever the big lecture hall is.
Yeah, that's where my bio class was.
I had several classes in that one. It was my favorite because then you just sit in the back, sneak in and out.
So I'm curious because you're sharing with us what feels like a guy who showed up to the big city and was kind of nervous or, really had to step out of your comfort zone. And you're painting this picture for us of you at university. And then I'm like, but now you're this like business owner and this entrepreneur. And so I'm so interested in like how that happened, because as much as I love Prairie Proud, I don't actually really know your origin story.
Yeah, so I think that's a great question as well, and that takes you back to where I grew up, and kind of it's kind of a tale of two different people, because in my small community, I was a community leader. I was heavily involved. I was volunteering for everything I could and trying to be a role model in my small community. I was involved with our Student Leadership Council. I was sitting on...
Weren't you like president of the SRC?
None of this is surprising to me.
SRC.
So I think that still to this day, maybe I could be wrong, but I think I'm the only... We'll take you through a little drama that happened in grade 10. So it's the end of the year, and I'm preparing to... I was the sports director the previous year. Everybody's assuming that I'm just going to run for sports director in the next year. I'm only going into grade 11. It's just not common for you to try to do anything else.
Yep.
And so somebody in grade 11, and most likely then going to be in grade 12 the next year, they're most likely, that's the president of the SRC is going to come from that year.
Right.
So I went to drop off my, I guess, entry form into the elections, and the secretary, who I've built a really close relationship with over the time of being in Langenburg School, she looks at it and she sees that I've marked off sports director, and she says, "Are you sure that you don't have bigger aspirations?" and I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And she's like, "Well, like, you should be president. Like, I think you're ready. I think you're ready to take on that role." But I was like, "I don't think I can even do that." And she's like, "Let's get out the Constitution." So
and in that moment in time, Cole's whole future changed.
So the real kind of drama portion of this is, so long story short, we look in the Constitution, we discover that you do not need to be like a grade 12 student to necessarily be president. There's nothing saying that. So we decide to do this. Now we have to keep it quiet for a few days until we have like a meeting to announce, like, you have to sit down and say, "I am Cole and I'm running for."
Okay.
And so that's the way that we do it every year, and kind of a democracy. So we're going around, and there is the person who is normally the vice president, most likely potentially would be the president the next year.
Yeah.
And so she's sitting in her chair and she's all excited, and she's like, "My name is," and ironically her name is Nicole. And so I'm Nicole and I'm running for president the next year. And so we go around the room, and obviously everybody's expecting me to say that I'm running for sports director. So we get to me, and obviously I'm quite nervous at this point because I don't know what the reaction is going to be. And so I say, I'm Cole and I'm running for president.
And her face just went...
Well, not just her, but like
me?
half the room, like, of her friends, that, again, it's a small community.
Yeah.
Like, they all look at me and like, "Oh my gosh, like, that, you can't do that." Like, literally audibly in the room, somebody's like, "That's not allowed."
Right.
And so anyway,
In comes the
And then the secretary's like, with the big book, gets out like a glass of... Actually...
Section 342.9.
Straight.
it was like out of a movie in terms of that. It was.
You were always meant for film.
I don't know about that, but anyway, yeah, it's one of those moments in life that, like, I don't know about you guys, but it's going to stick with me for the rest of probably until unfortunately I pass away. So
Core memory.
yeah, it's a core memory for sure. And that's just something that, I think now, like, at the time there was obviously a lot of animosity and it was a huge deal, but like, if Nicole ever listens to this, I think we're good, still friends, and she's got over that. So in any capacity, it was certainly taking you. Now I told my little story. I'll get back to the actual topic at hand.
No, I have a question about this. Did you win?
I did win.
Oh,
yes.
sorry, Nicole.
Yeah. So that was where I was going to. I guess I kind of counteracted this story. So I'm one of, I think, the only people to ever serve 2 terms, if you will, president in the student council.
When are we going to get into politics from Prairie Proud?
Yeah,
it's going to be the mayor soon.
The mayor of Saskatoon.
Yeah. I don't know. Charlie's
Cole,
doing a good
is this
job.
where you're announcing your...
For mayor.
Little did you know his campaign has begun.
We're making the posters. They're going to be so good.
Well, if I needed a hype team, I think I'd come to you.
I love it.
You got it.
Always. Anyways, back on topic.
Sorry.
So in terms of, you were asking, the original question was regarding how did you go from this kind of concerned, nervous student into then becoming more involved? And so really being involved in my local community was something I was very passionate about. But I think when I came to Saskatoon, I was intimidated because I didn't know these people. I wasn't comfortable around them. I didn't know my teachers on a first name basis. So in the first year, there was all these different opportunities to potentially get involved with different student leadership or extracurricular activities. But I was very intimidated that I didn't know these people. It was going to be a complete kind of putting yourself out there moment. And so it really took me for about a year into like year and a half before I okay, I understand Saskatoon now. I've kind of figured out what a university student is like. It's time to kind of break out of my shell and get back to the person I was in high school. But it comes back to that bubble comment that you mentioned before about I was really now kind of breaking on my bubble within Saskatoon and saying I really want to get involved in these things. I want to have an impact in my school. I want to apply what I'm learning in the classroom. And that's where I kind of took the leap to get involved with the business school, student leadership capacity, the council. I also got involved with various extracurricular academic case competitions. What is that? Basically, a case competition is where you're applying what you've learned in the classroom. So in this case, a business courses, finance, accounting, entrepreneurship, and then you're applying it in whether it's a simulated case competition where it's a fictional situation of a business and you have to solve potential problems or make recommendations on what they're having.
Okay.
Or maybe it's even in now some different competitions, it's actually creating a business and pitching that to potential investors.
Oh, cool. So fun.
That's
So
amazing.
it's simulating that environment. And so a huge organization that played a vital part in my academic career was JDC West, which stands for Jeu de Commerce. So it's originally started in Quebec back in about 2005. And then the competition was then installed in Western Canada in about 2007 or 2008. And so what this competition is it has 12 of the top business schools from across Western Canada competing in an annual competition each year. Each delegation is about 50 students.
That's amazing you did that.
I think it's so cool because you honed a skill set that you really need to apply every single day as an entrepreneur.
Yes, and so that's where I'm getting to in terms of really the journey to become an entrepreneur. Each year, normally, someone from the team will apply to be captains or co-captains. And I didn't know it at the time, but taking on this role, and luckily, again, the previous captains and our coach, because there was two different groups, so myself and a co-captain, her name was Kelsey, were basically bidding on this against two other competitors from our team who also wanted to be captains the next year. And so looking back at that, I don't know this for sure, but I have a feeling if they decided to go a different direction and choose the other two individuals that applied, I don't know if I'm an entrepreneur today.
Wow.
I think it was a life-changing experience.
Pivotal moment for you.
Because I look back now at that experience and it's just so vital to developing skills that now I wouldn't have the confidence, I think, to start a business from the ground up if I didn't take on that role. Now, it also probably helped that over the course of that year, we ended up winning the competition for the first time in our school's history.
The crowd of 4 judges. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, talking about core memories, there's still a video. I don't know if you guys have this, but I'm sure there's, whether it's like the birth of a child or a milestone. And for me, this is just one of those things at this stage of my life. There's a grainy video, because this is a few years ago, of us basically. So a big thing at this competition is there's a big gala night. And so
fancy.
Yes. So there's this thing called spirit fingers where everybody puts their fingers over the team that potentially is getting the results.
Oh, yeah.
I guess red.
It's kind of cultish, but okay.
There may be
Team spirit. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. I'll be honest, this organization can sometimes be compared to that.
Okay.
But again, in a very academically enlightening phase.
The word cult comes from culture.
That's true. Yeah, it's a very good way to look at it.
It is.
So anyway, in terms of, we're basically, this moment is there's spirit fingers all over. So you do it for each respective team. So if the entrepreneurship team is getting their results written, you're doing it to them, you're supporting them, you're showing them their support.
Okay.
So obviously, as you go out throughout the results, you are then leading to the academic school of the year and the overall school of the year, which is ultimately the title you're going for.
Right.
And we get down to the big award, school of the year. And so third place comes out. We didn't get third place. Okay, that's okay. Second place comes out. And then it's they go in order. And then they're reading. And so we're it's one of two teams. It's either us or it's these guys. And yeah, it's on video, and I'm getting goosebumps talking about it right now. It's basically we're all chanting Sasky. and then ultimately the presenting sponsor reads out the results, and University of Saskatchewan, Edward School of Business.
My God.
And so it's just
That's amazing. That's very cool.
one of those moments. And again, just looking at the decisions that happened before that, to reflect on it now. Again, if obviously maybe the two other potential captains that were going to be, maybe they lead us to victory as well. But it's just kind of a surreal thing to look back at that experience, and now having that moment that I'll again cherish for the rest of my life, and how it played a role in having confidence to potentially let's build something from the ground up. Let's take a risk. And I know as well, like, you just build a really solid network of people in this organization. And again, maybe that's compared to different aspects as well, but that was a big part of how I had also confidence to potentially start my business, because I was relying on a lot of these people to share this or help us really start out. And I still, to this day, there's several people from not just our school but other schools that I got to know who are very close friends and supporters of the business. And so that's just something that, again, I really don't think, if I didn't get involved with this organization and just the things played out the way they did, I just don't know if I make this life decision to go down this path, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, I think like we can always look back at moments, and when we were in it, maybe not see it. And maybe in that moment it was really big for you and you understood that something was happening. But I'm like, we can all look back and go, oh yeah, if that had played out differently, I would be a very different person. Yeah. Right? In any situation. I think that's so cool. I had a friend who I think did this.
Okay.
And I never understood. She'd like come home at Christmas and be like, I'm in these, and I'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. She'd be like, I'm in business and we do these things. We like have these, and she was in Kelowna, and she's like, we would have this, and they'd go to this gala thing, and I was like, that's cool. That sounds better than my paint class that I was in.
What paint class?
I did art.
Oh, okay.
I had to paint a naked person.
Oh wow. Scandalous.
You want to talk about the podcast? Small town, like,
yeah.
I was like sitting there, I was like,
traumatized.
We're trying. It was so awkward.
Okay, so where did the idea of Prairie Proud come from? Were you like, I want to start a business, and then figure it out from there? Or did you know already what you wanted to do, an apparel brand? Like, how did that start?
For sure. So really, I say there's two different aspects that really led to the starting of Prairie Proud. So first is kind of the rural upbringing that we talked about, being, born and raised in a very small community, my passion for where I grew up, and the fact that my great-grandfather first came in 1905 to Canada, and my uncle still proudly farmed the same land that he first settled.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
So I maybe didn't get bit by the agricultural bug, to become a farmer, but I'm still very passionate about my roots.
Just kidding, because now he supports my farmer with his clothes. So we're good. We're good.
And I obviously have complete respect. Like, my first job ever was cleaning my uncle's grain bins. Yeah. And so that was something, again, looking back at that job.
That's no joke.
No. It is not.
No joke.
Never seen a grain bin up close in my life.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah, on a 30-degree day in the summertime, it's not a lot of fun.
Nice.
No. But yeah, so first is that rural upbringing. My parents really instilled the values that, if somebody's good to you, you support them. And really that's reflected in the values, not only of myself, but then in the business. And so
absolutely, over
the course of then my degree, in being involved with things like JDC West and the student leadership or the student council at the Edward School of Business, I kind of always have been interested in fashion. I was the kid that had to have the top brand. I'd be spending my
grain bin shoveling money.
At, on the latest, and again, when I was growing up, the big trends were, the skate brands, the
like Hurley.
Yes. So definitely, like, looking back, I spent a lot of money on things. I'm like, really? Did I need to support some California?
How many Ruka shirts does one person need?
Like surfer, and we're all in the prairies. We're like, yes,
I love it. But totally, that was the fashion.
Yeah, that was the trend. Yeah. And so I guess that was something then I migrated to, in terms of when I was. Basically, somebody's like, well, who wants to take on, creating merch for our team? Oh. And so that's where then I started to be like, oh, I might be interested in that. Yeah. And so in different capacities, I took on that role in different organizations I was involved with.
Yeah.
And so not only did that really kind of spark an interest for me in that my mom is very creative and a bit of a watercolor artist. And I'm not talented as a painter, maybe as you are, Erica.
Oh, no. Let me be very clear.
Yeah.
Everyone at the end of that course was like, you look at the improvement. It was like, everyone was real nice to me about it, but I was the worst in the class. And that's fine. That's fine.
You can't be amazing at everything.
No, I'm amazing at too many other things. That's fine.
Too much. It's too much for one person.
Sorry, keep going.
But yeah, so I get the very much creative element from my mom. And so that's something too that I don't maybe advertise a ton, but still to this day, I probably design all the products that you see in terms of our line. And so people have said I've got to do a better job of marketing that, including maybe somebody sitting across the table here. No names mentioned, but in that capacity, so really, that creative element coming from my mom, I started to realize, okay, this was of interest to me. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize at the time that maybe I could do it as a profession or as start a business as a result of it. But
totally,
I started to not only then have that kind of interest there, but I was building some contacts in the industry who were going to be, somebody I would rely on if I was going to potentially enter the realm of creating a product-based merchandise business.
Hey guys, it's CJ here. Building a new home is a big process and can be overwhelming. Hometown Homes is a home designer and custom builder in Saskatoon whose mission is to add fun and lightness to a potentially overwhelming process. They'll design specifically for you with great attention to detail, using unique ideas and finishes that exceed your expectations so that you can't wait to share it. They believe in building beautiful homes and cultivating strong relationships, and it's through those connections that they can create spaces that reflect you, making building a custom home a fun and memorable experience. Hometown Homes is all about transparency. What you see is what you get. They become partners both with you and their trades to create consistency and trust throughout the project and go above and beyond because they care just as much about the end result as you do. Looking for a home builder? Look no further. Contact Hometown Homes via their website at hometownhomes.ca and find them on socials at hometown.homes to see snapshots of their beautiful custom homes.
And so at the end of my degree, I kind of said to myself, there's a fork in the road here. I had a couple different job offers, with the guaranteed salary and benefits. And my parents are very conservative people. And that's the reason I say that is just entrepreneurship was not something that they ever considered.
We were just having this conversation, and I was just having this conversation with my parents, because now they look at me and they're like, if I had sat them down when I was graduating and was like, I want to run a business, they'd be like, that's nice, you should go to school. And now it's very different.
And I think to this day, my parents would say when I was first starting out, my dad said, is this really something you want to do? Mm-hmm. The failure rates of small businesses.
Yeah, can you do this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, I think they were doing that to be...
out of love. It was a very protective thing. Yes.
Correct. And I think because...
and their fear.
For sure, of their fear. And they both worked in careers with, guaranteed hours, guaranteed salary for, decades.
Yeah.
And so seeing their son wanting to potentially pursue something different, the way that I articulated to them is, I was young enough at the time when starting this. I think still even now, if I fail, I'm still young enough and I have a ton of experience that I've gained 100%. From this to potentially use that, whether that's, serving another organization or starting a different business. Again, I really say, because people ask me a lot, would I change my decision if, I could change it to, go take the job and the guaranteed salary? And obviously in the first year or two, obviously it's scary. I think anybody who started the business, it's not all hunky-dory when you first start out, right?
Or ever.
Well, and you might be looking at maybe some of your friends who did take jobs that have secure salaries and hours, right? And you're like, oh, did I make the right decision in the beginning, right?
Yeah, and there's certainly that aspect still, the comparison. Mm-hmm. And there is still, I think, like any decision you make, there was certainly people who were doubting the fact that this was going to last 6 months and then Cole's going to realize that he can't do this. There's definitely still, and I think the people who know who they are who said that.
7 years later,
we won't
people.
Name them.
But so ultimately, and they're entitled to their opinion. Mm-hmm. And I guess I bet on myself and really
good for you.
Coming back to, the main kind of at the end of my degree, I kind of said to myself, I want to try to build something from the ground up. I have this interest in, basically not like fashion's probably the wrong term, but this interest in trying to potentially celebrate somewhere where I grew up. And obviously there have been brands that have tried to do this in other capacities. And I tried to want to put my own unique spin on it. And also a large part of what we do, coming back to those community values, is not just celebrating the Prairie Provinces, but then we take a portion of our sales and donate it back to various charities and initiatives across the Prairie Provinces. So really trying to have a positive impact with my business as well.
And where did that idea come from to be able to give back?
So again, looking at, there's other brands that have come before us. Certainly, social cause marketing has become a large thing in the last, 10, 15 years. So, successful brands, even in Saskatchewan, like Tentry and what they've done. Definitely this, I would be the first to admit this was inspired by them and organizations like them, Tom's Shoes, a variety of different aspects. And trying to put my own kind of localized spin on this and knowing, we're based in the prairies, we want to support prairie organizations. And so not necessarily, again, I was niching my market a little bit in that regard, but that's ultimately, I wanted people to know when they're supporting us that we're going to investing a portion of those sales back into initiatives or charities across the Prairie Provinces. And so that's just something, that was very much instilled from my parents. And I would say now that they did a very good job of raising me and instilling those values that, like I said before, if somebody's good to you, or you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours is what I say a lot. And so that's really special to me as well that, from the humble beginnings of a spare bedroom and 100 square feet, to this date, and this number will increase here as we head towards the new year. But $77,000 to date has been contributed to various organizations across the Prairie Provinces.
So how do you choose the organizations?
So that's a great question as well. So in the early days, we worked with specific charities. So here in Saskatchewan, that was the Children's Hospital Foundation of Saskatchewan. In Alberta, it was the Alberta Cancer Foundation. And in Manitoba, it was the Children's Hospital Foundation of Manitoba. So as the business has evolved, we've also done collaborations with various organizations ranging from Telemiracle, the Saskatchewan Rush, recently Carrie Enerson's curling team out of Manitoba. And so in those collaborations, we usually select a charity that is fitting for both organizations.
Right.
So just using the example of Carrie's curling team, we worked with the Sandra Smurler Foundation earlier this year and were able to make a $3,000 donation as a result of these collaboration items that have been sold. And so on that topic, we're actually going to be evolving this in the very near future where our audience is going to be playing a role in helping us select charities moving forward.
Amazing.
So keep an eye out for that in the coming weeks here. We're going to be announcing kind of details on what that's going to look like. But as our audience has grown, I want them to be able to play a role in helping us decide where those funds are going to be allocated.
So I'm so curious and for our listeners, because I think we have a variety of people listening and, we're entrepreneurs ourselves. I wonder if there's anything that you would look back on and be like, if I could go back and tell younger Cole this, or like some integral piece that I maybe missed in the beginning, or like something that you could say to a business owner right now who's starting out, like, make sure you do this. I would love to know what your Cole tip is.
Oh, a Cole tip. I like that. Like Cole's notes.
That's a good one.
Cole's notes.
The Cole tips.
Tip or tips.
Da, da, da.
We can make it plural.
So I think the biggest thing for me is you can't be afraid to fail. People are going, I know that sounds cliche, but certainly, there's, again, I mentioned just when I was starting out, my parents were hesitant. So my friends were hesitant. Some of my acquaintances from business school were hesitant. There's going to be ultimately people who are going to say no. They're going to say, no, that's a terrible idea. But again, I think ultimately, even if I did fail in year 1, year 2, or if I fail tomorrow, I will take the people, the experiences, and everything that I've learned over the course of now the last 8 years as treasured memories and experiences that I can now move into, whether that's a different career, a different business. And so really, you're going to have so many people throwing advice at you early on. They're going to have so many people telling you this is a bad idea. And ultimately, you have to have mentors. You have to have people who are going to be by your side. But ultimately, making mistakes is the best way to learn, in my opinion. And so that's something that to this day, I am not perfect. I make mistakes constantly. And so you try to then take those experiences and how do you then improve upon them in the future?
So when did you know in your business, because you obviously started out in a bedroom making shirts, how did you know as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, when to take those steps and when to be like, it's time to step out and be brave, or like, now I'm going to get a space? Like, did you have like an amount you wanted to be selling or anything like that?
So certainly, yeah, like the financial piece was a big part of it. I think, this maybe sounds cliche as well, but it was a bit of a gut feeling in that.
I love that.
For the first year,
your gut.
Yeah, I had to very much do that in terms of where, for the first year, I very much took a proof of concept approach. So we were in the spare bedroom. I was utilizing online marketing and doing pop-up events across, Saskatoon and a few different areas, really just seeing like, is there actually going to be traction that can be created for this business? And that was something that, don't get me wrong, a lot of long hours, a lot of hard work, but I didn't have, a lease. I didn't have, a ton of expenses. My parents were very supportive in not making me pay rent for the first little bit of the business.
Shout out to parents.
Shout out to parents in terms of doing that.
Giving you a leg up.
Because that was really, though, again, something I learned in business school. Let's start small and see if this can actually blossom into something that is going to be viable.
Yeah.
And so after that first year, I basically said to myself, okay, if this is actually, we're going to test this next hypothesis of can we grow this business, we need to have a physical space. We need to be able to build relationships with customers, not just in the digital space, but also in the physical space.
Front facing.
And so keep in mind, in 2014, when we launched, the online shopping world was a lot different than it is in 2022, right?
Yep.
And so just even getting somebody's confidence enough to buy from our website was something I was very concerned about when we first started. And not only that, how do we potentially keep that customer wanting to come back was a huge concern, right? Was this going to be a novelty thing where they buy one product from us and then they never want to support us again? So certainly, those were risks and things I was trying to navigate in the first year. And so then at that point, I made the jump to move into an incubation space down by the River Landing area here at Ideas Inc. And shout out to Depeche and his team over there. Really admire his leadership and everything that he was able to do for our business, because ultimately, without that leap, we then really couldn't start to build relationships with a bunch of different customers. So to kind of take you through that, we were 100 square feet in the spare bedroom. We moved into 400 square feet in our first space.
You were like, my kingdom.
Step up.
Hey, step up.
It was.
Oh,
yeah.
Elevate. Love it.
It was certainly, going from like a closet in a small apartment to like a walk-in closet kind of thing, is the comparison I make. But it was then another 2 years of executing that. Still no staff until it was about maybe a year of being at that space when we hired the first employee, which also for any small business owners is a huge step.
Deal.
I was going to say, was that your gut again that told you to go forward, or what? How did that play out for you?
Well, and especially with, I feel like your business is, of course, it's so important to you. And I just, from our interactions, I'm like, how was that? Like, entrusting your business to someone else? Like, what did that look like for you?
And so it's actually a really unique story, which I don't know if I've ever told before. My first ever hire was somebody who was coming in the store fairly consistently. And so,
Smart.
yeah, they
Maybe.
were already kind of understanding the brand and really, taking an interest in what we were doing. And so shout out to Genevieve if she's watching as well. She just expressed to me, she's like, well, would you ever want to have any help? And, I said to myself, well, again, at this time I'm working outrageous hours and just putting it in. And I'm just really trying to hustle to keep my business, trying to even just survive. But I did realize after she said that, it's like, yeah, help might be time for this, to do this. And so yeah, she was the first person, really that I'd already had a relationship with. Like, I think I didn't even really maybe know how to execute a hiring process at that time. So it was more so where she had become not only a customer, but a friend.
Yeah.
And there was a level of trust that was established in having her join, this very kind of, small thing that what I was trying to nurture and grow, and letting somebody kind of behind the curtain was a scary thing for me at that stage. And so, that was, again, more of a gut feeling after she kind of gave me a little push and saying like, hey, I think, I'm ready to give you some help if you would like. And so, it was certainly, I think any small business owner will remember their first hire and what that looks like. And And again, that was a great decision because it allowed me to try to not only have a little bit of balance, but also focus on some other areas of the business where I didn't have to be in the physical store every single day, where I was having help that, and building trust in somebody. And that's something that also along this journey, I've really enjoyed not only my staff that I've got to know, but also just the loyal customers and seeing their families develop over 8 years. There's several different families that I've got to know. I'll use my brother as an example. When the business started, recently married, didn't have kids.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward 8 years, I've got a 7 and 4-year-old niece. And so there's several stories like that of local customers right across the prairies, but a lot more in Saskatoon that come in frequently. And so now not only are they buying for themselves, they're buying for their kids. And so it's really special to see.
Cool.
Family photos. We just had one recently submitted for a Christmas card. And it's the whole family decked out in our gear, and it's just it warms your heart. It's again those I compare a lot those moments where the old master commercials would say, a pair of hockey skates costs this much, a hockey stick costs this much, but skating on your backyard pond is priceless. And those are those things as a small business owner that you can't put a value on, at least in my opinion, in terms of receiving those and just the relationships that you're able to build with your customer base.
Emotional connection.
I remember the first time I saw a Prairie Proud hoodie, my friend Jason was wearing it, who's a farmer. One of our best friends is farmers. And I remember there's like some other brands that, I had been shopping from or liked because of the like local love kind of aspect. And I remember being like, what is that? And he was like, oh, it's this guy and he's down at the farmer's market and he's got, and I think after that I went to go find Nick something, right? And it was like, oh, okay. And Jason was selling your story, which was community, and he was like, I really like it because it's focused on the prairies and it's like Alberta and Manitoba, and that was coming through to my friend who then spread what you were doing. Yes, an advocate, which is really important in the business that you're in.
Certainly. And again, that's when you walk in our store, I want to make it feel like you're walking in your small town grocery or hardware store, right?
Yeah. You've done a great job of that.
And it's just, one of those things that I've tried to make it a unique experience in our store. Nothing against the big box stores, but ultimately I want you to have a unique experience, whether you're talking with myself or one of our staff. I want you to make you feel like you are valued, you are seen, you are recognized, and we're going to do our best to help provide the best experience we can.
Well, I think that is getting more and more rare.
Have you, in your years of doing what you're doing and designing what you're designing, do you have like one product that you look back on that you're like, this is my favoriteest thing I've ever designed?
People ask me that too, and I'm like, oh, which year? I don't know.
Well, it's funny you say that because a lot of times customers will come in and be like, well, can you give me your perspective? And I say, well, you're talking to the guy that designs them all, so I'm a little bit biased in terms of like
one of everything.
But probably, obviously, something now that the brand has gotten known for, and that's kind of special to me because I played as a kid, is our hockey-inspired products. So we've tried to now do like annual hockey-inspired design. And so I'm trying to like up our game every year in terms of the different things that we do. And so when we teased the design that was coming out, I also released a photo of me as a kid in my little goalie outfit, which was just, again...
Oh no, did people love that?
Can't imagine.
Well, there was some interesting reaction, yes, so certainly...
I liked it. I thought it was great.
I'm going to have to scroll back.
I feel like I sent you like the quack, 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 like a Mighty Ducks thing, probably.
I definitely think you did something along those lines, yes.
Sounds like something you would do.
Like finding the right gift.
But I'd probably have to say, the hockey-inspired stuff has just been something that, special to me.
So good. I feel like we're kind of like wrapping up here. And we like to wrap up with a question.
Okay.
Which is, we like for our guests to share something that they're really loving or they're really obsessed with lately, to share with our audience, because we like a little takeaway at the very end, something someone should check out or that you're really into.
Got it. Okay.
He's like, my Prairie Proud.
The new hockey design.
Or like a habit.
My favorite.
Yeah.
Well, no, I do have to say, maybe this is going to sound, you kind of put the idea in my head.
That's
but
fine. I'm used
is
to
it
that.
the Her podcast? Is that what it is?
Well, the Her podcast, I have been listening. It's really good.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yes.
Cole.
Thanks.
But the show that I just started on Netflix, because I'm just a huge Jenny Ortega fan. So she's in the new Wednesday Addams on Netflix. And so, as maybe you guys know, and we did a reel inspired it. She was in season 2 of You, which I'm a huge fan of as well.
Who
on
was
Netflix.
she?
She was basically like the teenager that was like hanging out with.
Yeah. Okay.
So Wednesday Addams is like, it's a new take from Tim Burton on the Addams Family, and so I've just started that. And
I didn't know that was Netflix.
I believe it is Netflix.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw an interview with her, and she was talking about how she does her facial thing.
Yeah.
I was very intrigued by it.
I just think she's like one of the up and coming. Like, you're going to see her in so many things over the next few years. I think she's just crushing it, and I'm just a big fan of her, and I think the Addams Family. I think because of her, I want to watch it. And so first episode has got me interested in watching the rest. So,
Cool. Yeah. Okay, I love that because I might not have. Yeah, that's very cool. Well, Cole, we just loved having you on, and we're so glad to hear about your business. And we just want to thank you for your time today.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me. I hope this is going to be a valuable episode for your listeners. And as we're the first solo male guest.
First solo male.
And my mustache joined us here as well. So
Cole and his mustache.
Thank you to Cole and his mustache. But for people who don't know Prairie Proud, can you please tell our listeners where to find you?
So you can find us at 642 Broadway Avenue here in Saskatoon. So just down the street here from Elizabeth Lynn. And you can also find us online at www.prairieproud.ca.
And on Instagram, where can we find you?
You can find us and my mustache at Prairie Proud on Instagram.
And all the good reels.
The next design that comes out better just be a mustache.
Bring it back. Remember when mustaches were like having a moment and everything was so trendy? I feel like you could do it again.
You could do just like like a face with just like the mustache.
Make it your face.
Yes.
I'd buy one.
Yes, I would too. Let's do it.
Mustache. Do you have a special discount code for our listeners?
We certainly do.
Amazing.
So if her listeners want to use discount HER, HER, they'll receive 20% off at checkout.
Whoa.
Amazing.
Shop it up, people.
Everybody go check it out.
Thank you,
support them
so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And look forward to watching the HER podcast for months and years to come.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode of the Her Podcast. If you want to follow along with us, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at its.her.podcast. We can't wait to see you there.
Bye.
Adios.